Once you've found your sources, the two sources that you want to use for your group's research question that address the lens that you have chosen and discuss at least two different perspectives, you're ready to work on what we call an annotated bibliography. So I posted this assignment on Canvas, and so I just wanted to make a video to show you how to go about the process of making sure that your annotated bibliography is formatted correctly. And so one of the things that it says here, the reason why we make an annotated bibliography is because it helps us do some of the work for our project before we even put it together with other people, so that we really know what our sources are talking about and whether or not they're helping to answer our question. So you're going to make sure that you follow these bullet points. You're going to have a citation, which if you've followed the process that Ms. Barron showed us, you should already have that. So this is the two citations. These are the two articles that I decided to use. So I've already got them here. And then these are the things that we're going to do next. A brief summary of the text, comment on the authority or credibility of the author, comment on the strengths and weaknesses of their argument, the author's point of view, and then how it relates to your question or thesis. But before we get to that point, I want to show you real quick how to format your annotated bibliography, just so that you make sure it looks the way it's supposed to for MLA formatting. So if you open up your document, and like I said, if you followed my previous video or followed what Ms. Barron told us in class, yours should look very similar to mine. But this is not MLA formatting, so we need to make sure that we put it in the correct format. So the first thing that I want to do is, my Google Docs always format or always default to 1/2 inch margins, just because when I make documents, I like the margins to be smaller. But for MLA, it needs to be 1 inch. So if you come up here to File and then go to Page Setup, you're going to change all the margins, or just at least check to make sure yours are 1. I need to change mine. You probably won't need to change yours. But check and make sure that your margins are 1 all the way around. So that's the first thing. Then I'm going to select all the text. So everything that I've got there so far, I want to change the font so that it's all the same. I really hate Arial font. So when I do this kind of stuff, MLA suggests using Times New Roman. Doesn't mean you have to use it, but if that's what they're suggesting, then it's probably in your best interest just to go ahead and use that one. So I'm going to change it to Times New Roman. Mine's on size 10 right now. So MLA also says that it needs to be 12-point font. So I'm going to change it to 12. And then when I copied and pasted, it had this weird highlighting background on my citations. So I'm going to come up here to the little highlighter, click on that, and then I'm going to click on None, and that'll get rid of that highlighting. So once I've done all of that, I'm going to come up here, put my cursor at the top. I'm going to put it in the center. And for MLA, our bibliography is called Works Cited. Please make sure you put an S on the end of that word, because you have more than one source. If you only had one, then you could put Work Cited instead of Works Cited. But since we have multiple, we need to make that word plural. A lot of students forget that, so don't be that one kid. So then next, what I want to do, MLA requires you to put your last name and the page number at the top of each page. So what I did, I just double clicked at the top of the page to get to the header. And you can see that my font goes back to what it defaults to, so I need to make sure I change it. And it seems like such a small thing, but you want to make sure that it matches everywhere. So Times New Roman, 12-point font. And then I'm going to put it on the right-hand side. And I'm going to put my last name. I'm the one creating this, so that's why I'm putting Fulbright. Don't put Fulbright because that's your teacher. Put your last name, the person who is making this works cited page. Then you're going to hit space. And then this is the important one. You put the page number. But if you just type the page 1, then let's say your works cited page was really long and it went on to 2 pages. If you just type the number 1, it's going to put 1 on every single page. We want to make sure that it puts the correct number on each page. So you come up here to Insert, Header and Page Number, then Page Number, and then just select this first one right here. and that'll put the correct page number, so that let's say you have all this other stuff you're going to type, maybe you have 10 sources you want to put on here, which eventually you will for a different project. But if you go onto the next page, when you go onto the next page, it automatically numbers it correctly for you. So that's just a good habit to get into, to put the page number in there correctly. Okay, so I've got my header, and then my citations here are still not formatted the way that they're supposed to. So I'm going to take the links out because I don't need those anymore. I've already read through my citations or my sources, and maybe I've even printed them out. So I don't need those anymore. The first thing I need to do to check is to make sure that whatever's listed first for each citation, you want to put your citations in alphabetical order. So mine are already in alphabetical order. But if this one had been at the top of the page, I would need to move it because you want them listed in alphabetical order based on whatever is listed first in the citation. Then I'm going to select all my text again, because in MLA formatting, everything is double spaced. So I'm going to come up here to my line spacing button, and I'm going to select double. And I'm going to take out that space in between my citations because I'm going to show you how to show the difference between your citations. So if I select just my citations, then this button up here is for your first line indent and your left indent. So I'm going to pull the whole thing over to 0.5. Then I'm going to click right here at the first line, the very beginning of the citation. And I'm going to move just this top one, this top little bar. If you hover over it, it says first line indent. I'm going to move that one back over to 0. And then I'm going to do the same thing down here. Put my cursor at the very beginning of that citation and move the first line indent back over to 0. So now you can very easily see where one citation stops and the next one starts. So in MLA formatting, you don't number anything, you don't put bullets. You do this, what's called a hanging indent, so that you can see where one starts and the other ends. So once you've done that, then you're ready to go back to your assignment, and you're going to answer these things about each of your two sources. I want you to answer these in complete sentences, and I have included an example down here for how this should be formatted. But all you're going to do is come back up here, and you can press enter. And so under this source, I'm going to first give a brief summary. And then you're going to make sure you address all the other things on this list. So when I say comment on the authority or credibility of the author, so if I go back to one of the sources that I found, if I pull up the full text, so this one doesn't really give me any details about the author, except for right here. Okay, so this gives me some information about this author. It says that he's a research professor at the University of Colorado, Denver, and senior fellow at the Education Commission of the States, Denver. So this information I could just put on my annotated bibliography about the author. And so why we do that is because you want to make sure that you are getting your sources from credible people, but also once we get to the projects where you are going to be writing essays, you need to include this kind of information about your authors in your essays. So go ahead and put it in your annotated bibliography, and then you'll have it and you won't have to go back to the source and look it up later. And then the other things, the strengths and weaknesses of their argument. So what are they talking about? Is it a strong argument and why, or is it not a very strong argument and why? What's the author's point of view? So if I go back to this one, so this one talks about a real teacher shortage. So once I read through this source, then I'm probably going to have an idea of what their perspective is on this teacher shortage. Maybe what's causing it, maybe we need to put more money towards it. So that's what I'm explaining here. Like, what is the author's point of view? How does the author feel about teacher shortage and teacher pay? And then this one is extremely important, because if you're not able to easily answer this question, then you probably don't have a great source to use for your project. So how is this text, this source that you are talking about here, how is it going to help your group answer the group research question? And then you might also want to include, since you have your own lens, how is it going to help you answer your question through your lens? So use this example to show you how it should be formatted. And then, of course, make sure you've formatted your page correctly like I have here. And like I said, you can include your annotation, the answers to those questions right underneath each citation. So once you've finished all of that, that is what you are going to submit here. You're just going to link your Google Doc that you've created with all of your annotations and explanations on it and submit it here.